only hurts the most vulnerable, our children.
Today on the Morning Edition, President Trump expected to sign an executive order today to begin tearing apart the Department of Education, what that means for Alaska. Plus, reliving Mount Spur's last eruption, we're taking a look back through the lens of the man who captured it all on camera. And later,
we thought, hey, that was pretty fun. We should go to a different state every year.
38 vows and counting. A Colorado couple is on a unique mission, renewing their wedding vows in every state. Why they started this tradition and how a mooning pastor played a role as the Morning Edition starts now. Good morning, everyone. Happy first day of official spring.
I know, yeah, and it's been feeling like it, I guess,
Yeah.
aside from that snow that we got, but
Yeah.
spring's here.
We're going to be talking about those temperatures the next couple of days, certainly on the warmer side. Of course, that snow that we've seen the past couple of days will begin to melt some of that off the past couple of days, a lot quicker than we typically would see in March, largely due to the snow. Recent snow has fallen over the past week. We haven't seen the fusion of those snow crystals to the surface, so it will quickly be able to be melted as we continue to warm here over the next couple of days. We are waking up, those temperatures sitting in the 20s across South Central, 28 degrees currently here in Anchorage, with winds for the most part remaining fairly light. You can see across the rest of South Central, we're already beginning to see some clear skies through the valley into the Copper River Basin. Still holding on to some chilly conditions, but overall a warmer weather pattern is taking hold across the state, and this will carry us through the rest of this week on into next week. Now, we're still holding on to some areas of rain out towards Prince William Sound, with some areas inland holding on to some pockets of some wintry mix as you head from Whittier, Portage, and some of those inland locations near the coast. So we'll be watching for that throughout the day. Now from Anchorage into the valley, we'll largely stay dry. Can't rule out a stray shower. But for the most part, we are going to continue to hold on to these drier conditions, and we'll see some sunshine breaks throughout the day. Those temperatures are set to warm near 40 degrees today across South Central. This will kickstart what's going to be a warm weather pattern that will carry us through the weekend and into next week as we officially usher in spring. And when we're talking about the spring equinox, that's when that sun, direct rays above the equator. We're talking about that spring equinox began at 1:01 this morning. As it approaches the equator and crosses the equator and begins its journey towards the Tropic of Cancer, that's where we're going to begin to count down the days until summer. But we are beginning to approach that time of the year where we're not only beginning to see a longer stretch of daylight, but those temperatures continue to warm. I'll let you know just how warm we'll get coming up in my full forecast.
New this morning, a 20-month-old child left alone in a freezing car was rescued after a Good Samaritan heard cries from a parking lot.
It happened in Healy. The toddler's mother is in jail and the baby treated for hypothermia. Dispatchers, they got the 911 call Tuesday night. Responding crews, they found the child in a parked car with the engine off, a window partially open, and temperatures at just 6 degrees. Paramedics removed the child and began treatment for hypothermia.
Investigators say the mother, 38-year-old Lillian Johnson of Fairbanks, left the child alone for 35 minutes while she met someone inside a hotel for what troopers call a romantic rendezvous. Johnson was arrested for endangering the welfare of a child and booked into the Fairbanks Correctional Center. NTSB investigators are uncovering new details about the deadly crash of Bering Air Flight 445.
It's been a month since the plane went down, killing all 10 on board. And as Joe Allgood reports, this is just the first step in what will no doubt be a lengthy investigation.
I don't know that I personally will read it that much in depth, but regardless of what the report said, I hold no ill will towards Bering Air.
For family of passenger Leanne Ryan, who was one of the 10 aboard Flight 445, the preliminary findings are not surprising.
Kind of what we expected, combination of weather and other factors.
This is only the first report in a longer investigation that could take over a year.
We'll make numerous trips back to that wreckage and again trying to collect those pieces of the puzzle. We're not anywhere near assembling that puzzle yet, so we're still in the gathering stages.
So far, investigators determined the plane was overweight by over 1,000 pounds.
Every aircraft, or whether it's a Cessna 152 or a Boeing 777, has limitations. Those limitations are set by the manufacturer. They're enforced by the FAA. As a pilot, you know that you have to adhere to those limitations.
And weather conditions might have led to some icing along the aircraft.
There was some around the strobe light that's on the vertical stabilizer. So that indicates that there was some icing. Just to what extent, we don't know at this point right now.
But investigators say those are just factors, and no fault or cause can be assigned yet.
Ultimately, the buck stops with the pilot. No ifs, no ands, no buts. However, the company, in this case, is obviously, he works for Bering Air. So we're going to be looking at, all different aspects. And I should mention that Bering Air, we're joined at the hip as far as trying to figure out what happened here. They're cooperating, we're working together, and they're just as concerned as, obviously, as everybody else to get to the bottom of this.
Too early to jump to conclusions.
Obviously, if, once somebody sees that an airplane was 1,000 pounds over gross, they think that that's the end of the investigation. That is not the case. And I can almost guarantee that there will be other factors, as we've mentioned before, that probably played a role in this accident.
Amidst the unfortunate reality.
Aviation in Alaska is dangerous. It's just a risk that our family was willing to take.
Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
The NTSB encourages anyone with information about Flight 445 to email witness@ntsb.com. You can also find that information on our website. Turning now to Capitol coverage, Senator Dan Sullivan is in Juneau today to address both houses of the Alaska legislature.
This is the most important speech I give all year.
This was Dan Sullivan giving that annual speech last year. Starting at 11 a.m., he is expected to cover key issues impacting the state, including energy, defense, and the economy. Lawmakers will have a chance to hear his priorities and, along with reporters, ask questions on federal policy affecting Alaskans. Senator Elisa Murkowski addressed both houses on Tuesday.
When we were over there, I can remember thinking that, my gosh, we're very close to this eruption column.
And this is video from just outside Anchorage about 32 years ago. Now, as Alaskans continue watching a likely Mount Spur eruption here in the coming weeks or months, a now retired volcanologist was the one behind the lens when Spur erupted on August 18th in 1992. While as he worked at the Alaska Volcano Observatory, he was asked to go get in a plane and check out a rumor of a possible eruption.
It was a cloudy day in Anchorage. And so we couldn't see the volcano, couldn't see across Cook Inlet. So we popped up above the regional cloud layer, and that's where my video of that day begins, with us seeing this enormous eruption cloud. And then as we traverse more to the north, we begin to see the eruption column coming out of Crater Peak. And it was just, it's hard to explain how spectacular that was to be in that plane.
And he says being in that profession, volcanic eruptions are where he got his energy. He spent as much time in the air as he could to witness and capture Spur's power.
Do you feel like it was like a once in a lifetime opportunity?
Absolutely. I had a 39 plus year career with the USGS, 29 of that with the Alaska Volcano Observatory, and that was got to be the highlight day of my whole career.
Out of these several possible outcomes from Mount Spur's current increased activity, the Alaska Volcano Observatory says the most likely scenario would look something similar to this, which is the 1992 eruption. Now, scientists at the Alaska Volcano Observatory say more activity is likely before any eruption. Lauren Maxwell went there to see how experts are monitoring the volcano around the clock.
But we can track the surface through time.
Scientists are using sophisticated software.
So this is now a 3D model derived from those photographs.
That's advanced considerably since Spur last erupted in 1992. One thing they do know,
starting to melt things, producing a little bit more steam.
Things inside the volcano are slowly heating up. In 1992, the volcano blew after an extended period of unrest that ramped up prior to the eruption. Today, seismic activity on Spur is considered elevated at code yellow,
And you can see, depending on which way the wind blows, it can impact a lot of different areas.
But scientists say so far, it's not increased enough to raise it to the next alert level, orange.
The earthquake activity, it waxes and wanes on any particular day, but overall it's in a general sort of stable pattern.
Scientists are confident their equipment will give the public fair warning days or weeks before an event.
Even at that point, it's not certain that an eruption will occur. I mean, there are lots of volcanoes that get almost all the way to an eruption and it doesn't actually happen. So it is important for people to be aware that this is not a certainty, but it's, more likely than not.
They say the best course is to be prepared and stay tuned for information in the days ahead about the volcano's continuing unrest. Lauren Maxwell, Alaska's news source.
If Mount Spur erupts, the Mat-Su School District says it's ready and prepared to quickly work with the borough and state officials. In a district message to families and staff, officials outlined a response plan, including possible school closures, sheltering in place, or evacuations, all depending on the eruption's timing and weather conditions. They're coordinating with emergency response agencies to keep students and staff safe. The eruption's size, time of day, and weather patterns will also determine how the district responds and if students will be sent home, shelter in place, or cancel school. There's also a plan if students and staff need to shelter at the school.
Everything's got filtration, all your air intakes, everything, all the air handling systems into the school, all your generation systems. We're going to ensure at the point in time that kids are in the schools that those systems are shut down, just so it'll filter it, but we don't want to take the chance of bringing it into the school anyway.
District leaders say they'll use their mass communication system to text, call, and email families. The Kenai Peninsula Borough School District says administrators will meet next week to make sure everyone is on the same page, and the Anchorage School District expects to release its plan tomorrow. The quickest way to get real-time information is by signing up for our push alerts on the free Alaska's Weather Source app. That's where you can check out the latest in our continuing Volcano Watch coverage.
After the break, could U.S. trade policies be driving tourists away? A new report warns of a drop in foreign visitors and a multi-billion-dollar hit to the travel industry. Plus,
President Trump is expected to sign an executive order today to begin dismantling the Department of Education. I'm Natalie Brand in Washington with what we know, plus the escalating court battle over deportation flights.
Still holding on to the active weather across the Gulf Coast region. I'll have more on that warmer weather heading our way. But first, sunrise, 7:59 in Anchorage, 6:58 in Juneau. Your full forecast is next.
A good Thursday morning, everyone. We are back here about 15 minutes past the hour.
And we are officially in our first day of spring, Aaron.
Yeah, about 4 hours into the spring season, and we're talking about warmer conditions beginning to spread back in across the state. Now, yes, we're still holding on to some areas along the slope and out west that continue to remain on the chillier side. It will take some time for that warmer weather to approach the slope, but we are beginning to see those warmer conditions already beginning to build in as you head out towards Northway near Toke, sitting in the teens this morning. 6 in McGrath. We've got the 20s and the 30s out towards the Aleutians. Here in South Central, we're waking up to the 20s and the 30s, but also some breaks in the clouds to be expected. Some sunshine will stay with us into the afternoon hours. Now, locations where we are seeing some of those clouds breaking, it's actually cooler this morning than yesterday. That is the power of those clearer skies that we are seeing, but we are beginning to see the return to some warmth. Today, we're going to see those temperatures across South Central warming near 40 degrees, so expect to see this gradual return to temperatures in the upper 30s and the lower 40s for the foreseeable future. You can see 12 degrees warmer in McGrath, 10 degrees warmer in Bethel, nearly 20 degrees warmer in King Salmon, as well as out towards Northway Toke, where we're seeing those temperatures nearly 25 degrees warmer. Still active weather remaining with us from the Aleutians to the Gulf of Alaska. This is where we're going to continue to hold on to some of that lingering activity that stays with us through the close of this week. We do have some rain that's still impacting areas of Prince William Sound, some lingering precip that's pushing westward across parts of the Kenai from Portage out towards Hope, where we could see more in the way of light snow showers or some wintry mix to start off your Thursday morning. Looking at precipitation the last 10 days, it's been a fairly fairly active week to week and a half across South Central. The bulk of this precipitation fell as snow. You can see for the month of March, we're sitting at just under 7/10 of an inch of precipitation, which is above average from where we saw last year during the month of March, as well as our overall March, which we typically see right around a half an inch of precipitation. We are just outside the top 10 snowiest Marches on record with 16.9 inches. The top 10, the number 10 spot goes, I do believe, 2002 or 2020 when we saw 17 inches of snow accumulation. So all we need is 0.1 inches to make it into the top 10 snowiest on record. Not looking likely as we are trending on the drier side the next couple of days. Still holding on to some of that lingering precip for both South Central as well as Southeast. Notice, though, as we welcome in our Friday, things begin to dry out across South Central with some lingering activity out towards the Panhandle. So we will catch some dry breaks here over the next couple of days, but the overall weather pattern continues to favor active weather for the Gulf Coast region. Avalanche danger, despite the quieter conditions, still remaining considerable above 1,000 feet. I do want to bring your attention to reports of large human-triggered avalanches that did occur on Monday, so that potential still remains with us as we do have that weak layer buried about 1 to 3 feet in the mountains. Those temperatures out towards southeast set to return into the 40s today, and of course across South Central we are going to see those temperatures once again steadily warm into the 30s and the 40s. That precip will taper off across the region, and then you can see that chance for some snow builds in with us as we that chance for some snow for parts of the Kenai. Should update that spring forecast should go to Thursday, but that temperature is staying in the 40s for the foreseeable future.
All right, thanks, Aaron. This afternoon, President Trump is expected to sign his long-awaited executive order to dismantle the Department of Education, a key campaign promise.
A White House spokesman says the order is aimed at empowering parents, states, and communities. Natalie Brand has what's new this morning.
Today, President Trump is expected to make good on another campaign promise.
We will ultimately eliminate the federal Department of Education.
The White House says he will sign an executive order to begin dismantling the Department of Education, though total elimination would require congressional approval. Also, a federal judge, after extending a previous deadline, is still demanding answers by today from the Trump administration on why his orders to halt 2 deportation flights to El Salvador carrying alleged gang members over the weekend were ignored. Court filings show the administration may use the state secrets privilege to try and block the judge from seeing some information about the removals. Meanwhile, the White House says President Trump proposed that the U.S. take control of Ukraine's power plants to ensure their security during his 1-hour phone call with the country's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, yesterday. The president described their first call since their Oval Office clash as very good. Zelensky also said he's on board with a partial ceasefire on energy and infrastructure, something also discussed with Russian President Vladimir Putin during President Trump's Tuesday call. White House officials say negotiations could begin as early as this weekend in Saudi Arabia. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Back to the president's order to dismantle the Department of Education. It's not expected to address federal student loans or special education and services for children with disabilities. Now, this follows the agency announcing workforce cuts of nearly 50% earlier this month. About 1,300 employees were laid off, with hundreds more taking voluntary buyouts. Shutting down the department entirely, that would require an act of Congress.
The Trump administration has warned university leaders they could lose federal funding if they don't eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. With that in the background, University of Alaska President Pat Pitney announced cuts and closures to both Fairbanks and Anchorage this week. UAF is closing a diversity center, and UAA is eliminating its chief diversity officer. This follows a Board of Regents decision to remove DEI references from university websites. A former UAF diversity center worker worries about censorship.
Words that are commonly used in certain communities that are now banned and not allowed on university websites is extremely concerning, because even if we don't see immediate one-on-one student representation like right now of how they're affected, I worry that in the future they're going to narrow that even more, and it's the start of potential for a snowball downhill, in my opinion.
In the Monday letter, the university president said the university system will continue prioritizing student education and welfare while providing a welcoming environment for all students, staff, and faculty. The president's trade policies could also cause a dip in foreign visitors, according to a report from Tourism Economics. The travel analytics firm predicts the U.S. could see a 5% drop in foreign tourists this year, adding that combined with a slowdown in domestic travel by Americans could end up costing the industry around $64 billion in 2025.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcasts from Alaska's News Source automatically and stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's News Source app.